When I was a kid, my mom would take me to the mall, and the only way into the mall was past the perfume aisle. Head down, you'd run the gauntlet, counters on both sides of you, while well-dressed people spritzed their brand's perfume into the air above your head. To pause was to indicate an interest in that particular scent, while a full stop practically guaranteed that you'd be convinced to buy something. I must have walked past and through the perfume aisle 100 times in my childhood, but I only remember one. My mom and I were running the gauntlet when we ran into an acquaintance of my mom's and stopped to chat. My mom asked the woman casually how she was doing, and the woman replied, "Terrible. My husband died this year, and things have been awful." You're not supposed to say this in the perfume aisle. The perfume aisle is an environment engineered to avoid thinking about death. The glass counters gleam, the lights are bright, the people are young and beautiful, and it smells good. When my mom and I stopped to chat in the perfume aisle, death entered, and the illusion was disturbed for just a few moments. And the grave lingered there in the midst of all that perfume, long enough to create a memory that I carry with me to this day. Jesus arrives for dinner at the home of his very good friends, siblings Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. They appear to have thrown a dinner in Jesus' honor because, the narrator says casually, Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. Martha is standing and shuffling back and forth to the kitchen. Lazarus is reclining at the table with Jesus, and Mary is down on the ground. Then and now, on your hands and knees was a vulnerable posture. It could mean any number of things. You're throwing up in the toilet, you're scrubbing the floors, you're looking for something you lost, you're stretching, you're cowering in fear, you're learning to crawl. Most perfume bottles contain just polite amounts, 3 ounces. Even so, an ordinary bottle of perfume at a spritz a day might last you a whole year. Mary's bottle is a pound, 16 ounces. That's the size of a grande coffee at Starbucks before you boycotted it. According to this math, 16 ounces of perfume ought to have lasted Mary more than 5 years. And she poured it all out on Jesus' feet in one shot. When the narrator tells us that the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume, that's no joke. Honestly, that smell may not go away for a year. If you've worshiped in churches that use incense in worship, you know that the smell never goes away. It's always there, caught in the fabric of a robe or in the pew or in the stone. To catch a whiff of that is to smell worship itself. Judas, who is the treasurer of the group, understands Mary's act only in economic terms. 300 denarii amounted to a laborer's pay for half a year. We're told that Mary bought the perfume herself. So in summary, Mary spent half a year's wages on 5 years' worth of perfume, which she poured out in a single extravagant act on Jesus' feet. Judas, like so many men then and now, mansplains to Mary what the money could have been used for instead. as if she were all aflutter about the details and her gesture could be reduced to the ignorance of the basic math involved. If she'd only understood the way these things work, she'd have made a different decision. Jesus interrupts. Leave her alone, Judas. She did this for the day of my burial. On this final Sunday of Lent, Mary sees from the floor what no one else at that dinner party can. That Jesus' road is taking him to Friday and the cross. You and I will run the gauntlet of Holy Week from Palm Sunday to Easter, but there on Good Friday, we're going to be stopped by an acquaintance in the perfume aisle. How are you? We're going to ask non-committally. Actually, I'm terrible. For the one I loved more than anyone else in the world just died, and I don't know what I'm going to do. In this community of St. Clement's, our mission is learning to follow Jesus Christ. If I asked you what that tasted like, you might say bread and wine. If I asked you what it sounded like, you might name your favorite hymn. If I asked you what it looked like, you might point to serving your neighbor. If I asked you what it felt like, you might touch the wood of your favorite pew or the chair from which you stream the service at home. But what if I asked you what it smelled like? What does learning to follow Jesus Christ smell like? Many years ago, when I was first ordained, I went off on my first or second clergy conference. That's a gathering every year or two of the more than 200 deacons and priests and bishops throughout the whole GTA area. And we go away for a few days of prayer and reflection and fellowship. That year we had a guest speaker whose name was Tex Sample. He was perhaps the greatest storyteller that I have ever heard, then or since. And of all the stories that he told during that conference, I remember only this one, and I have carried it with me ever since. Tex recounted a time when he was visiting a pastor. And this pastor's ministry was devoted to working with street-involved folks. As I recall, this pastor was known for giving big bear hugs to people, enveloping them with his tender and strong love. And when Tex met him for the first time, this pastor gave him a bear hug. Tex accompanied this pastor among some of his work with men living on the street, and somewhere along the way, Tex, who was not accustomed to this difficult work, asked this pastor how he did it day after day, serving these children of God who were living rough. How did he draw close to touch and to embrace those living on the streets, some of whom struggled to take care of their basic hygiene? And that pastor turned to Tex, and I want you to remember this, and said, "The worse the smell, the greater the need. And the greater the need, the greater the neighbor." In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the woman who anoints Jesus pours the perfume on his head. But only Mary in the Gospel of John anoints Jesus' feet, his dirty, sandal-clad, stinking feet. While everyone else at the party is at the dinner table or standing above it, only Mary bends low, and only she sees in the midst of the party that's going on that Jesus will not be with them much longer. And so she looks to the shelf at her most valuable possession, a 1-pound jar of perfume paid for with half a year's wages, pure nard, 5 years' worth. And she says to herself, I don't have 5 years. And she breaks the jar open and she pours all of it out on Jesus' feet. Five-year plans have their place. We have one here at St. Clement's. And sometimes when we're in the middle of running off to what we think is our next big thing, running the gauntlet of our lives, we're pulled up short and we realize that we don't have 5 years. Do it now. To whom might God be calling you to draw close as the neighbor that person needs? To adopt a posture of humility, to get down as if you're looking for something that you've lost, or maybe to learn how to crawl again. Over what rough area in their life might Jesus be calling you to pour his balm? Or, to flip it around, and this is often more difficult for us, what rough and hidden place in your own life might you allow Jesus to touch? To touch and to heal, so that his fragrance might fill your house. Amen.